So I want to talk about something, and I'm not even sure what the name of this subject is. That's the problem I'm having. I didn't get to sleep much last night. Slept about 5 hours. And I want to go back to sleep, even though it's, getting towards noon. But I want to go back to sleep because I need that sleep. That sleep helps me provide balance for the few things I do that are ordinary things. That sleep provides recuperation for the several chronic ailments I suffer. But I'm not getting it. And I'm not getting it likely because of the horrible tension that I feel due to the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Literally. Now, I don't watch the news because I know that the news is evil. The news is just there to sell you product from their sponsors who pay for the news. That's what the news is for. You think it's there to inform you. It's not. It's there to make you emotionally unstable because in an emotionally unstable state, a person is more likely to make bad financial decisions. And here come the sponsor commercials for goods that you neither need or can afford. That's all that the news is about. It has no purpose to inform. It only means to upset you. True story. Anyway, I want to talk about my sleep this morning. I only follow a little bit of the national and international situation because most of what we see is hype. Most of what we see is hype that's meant to swing us around like a farmer with his finger in the ring through our nose. Oh, now believe that this guy's evil. Believe that this guy's evil. Believe that other Americans are evil because they disagree with you. No. The whole point of America is an adversarial relationship between political identities. That's the whole purpose of our representational republic. And you don't get it because you're listening to liars. Liars, liars, liars. Liars on the radio all day long. You're at work listening to a liar talking. You're on your way somewhere listening to a liar talking. And he's poisoning your mind because you can't help yourself. That's what propaganda does. It poisons your mind. You can't get away from it unless you turn it off. And are any of you turning it off? I don't think so. So here's what's happening with me because I turned it off. I'm still so full of tension and this vague feeling of malaise that I had a dream this morning from which I awoke, unlike any other I remember. Unlike any I had during the Vietnam War, when my ship might have been sent to a combat zone. Unlike anything I felt during the Cold War, when I or my whole nation could have been called to colors and forced to fight on a nuclear battlefield. Total war, that's what it means. The whole population is at fault for the bad decisions of its government. The government isn't at fault. Now that's a disconnect in reality. But all governments spend more time lying to you about how cool they are than they do doing anything worthwhile. All governments. All governments are self-aggrandizing. All governments are there to skim off the top because that's cool. That's what rich people like. They like skimming off the top without much effort. They like looking down at us and saying, "You little fools. Send me a whore." Right? So here's the dream I had. I was helping people work somewhere in the house. We're cleaning it or clearing it out or something. And as in my dreams, I was surrounded by people that I knew, and I knew their history, and they were my friends and, community members. But in the real world, I didn't know a single one of them. I never remember any of these people from my real life. They're not faces plugged in. They are entirely new people that my mind generates. It's pretty amazing. I'm helping them. We're cleaning out a house. We're moving, dirty furniture out. I guess somebody's going to clean the house. And I felt the wind kick up, so I looked off to the west, and I saw an enormous storm. It was a tornado. But it was a tornado with a base 2 or 3 miles across. And as I watched, It was just a black column with gray in it and pieces of things that you couldn't make out because it was fairly far away. It was, 10 miles away. And the base of it was so big that individual objects were lost, but you knew those were lives. You knew those were homes and nest eggs and cars and people's possessions and people. They're being sucked up, consumed by this insensate storm that had no good purpose at all except to destroy. There was nothing good could come from this storm except destruction, awful horror. That's not good. And I turned back around, and the people I was working with were like, well, let's go, Bill. We got stuff to do here. And I'm like, no. Did you see the storm? And they're like, that has nothing to do with us, Bill. Come on, let's go. Let's finish this job. I says, no, I don't want to be here. I'm leaving. I'm walking home. Now, the impression I got in my dream was that walking home would be tens of miles and that I was stranded and had to walk a long way to get home, and the weather was getting bad. For a person like me who has walked most of his life, those are all bad things, all warning signs. You don't want to do that. And I was like, oh no, I'm not staying here and being consumed by an insensate storm that has no purpose except to destroy. I'm leaving. The people around me started acting like I was a traitor. How could you? We have a job to do. You're thinking about yourself. No, I'm thinking about surviving long enough that I can put wreaths at your graves and say, I'm so sorry I've lost you, my friends. But no, they were angry at me because I wouldn't help them finish this job while the impending disaster was looming over us and going to consume us all. I use that word advisedly every time. The dichotomy between the reality and the responses of those around me snapped me awake. And I woke up way early. But the point is that these good, honest, hard-working people had no clue that that giant storm was about to consume them and everything that they knew and loved and everything they thought was worthwhile. And this is how I feel, and I don't even watch television. So I'd like to make an open appeal to this government and to all our governments everywhere. This isn't how your people should feel. Your people should not wake up in the morning because the sword of Damocles of nuclear effing destruction is hanging over their heads. And yeah, it is. What is your go-to response when your army's too small to oppose another army in the field? Ballistic missiles. Nuclear effing destruction. And that's supposed to stop enemy powers from invading other nations. And has it worked? Absolutely not. So, I beg of you, rethink your policies. I know you don't care about me. I'm just a person. And the polity, you can't see the polity. It would be like trying to look at atoms for you. You only see the big animals. You only see other rich people like yourselves. And there aren't too many of those. So for you, the world is full of atoms, little things that you don't care about. But they are the ones that consume your products. They are the ones that make you your fortune, because you didn't make your fortune working for yourself. You can't. No human being can. You use it by co-opting these little people, these atoms, and making them your workforce, and making them your tax base. But you don't care about them. You only care about the people at your level. And that has led us to this shares of the market, shares of the market, shares of the market. I'm not making enough shares of that market. Let's go to war. And so, the sword of Damocles of nuclear effing destruction hangs over us all and causes horrendous stresses that many people don't recognize. They just go on with it. They just go on with it. But they don't realize it's stressing their heart, It's stressing their body. It's shortening their lives. Stress does that. If you don't believe me, that's okay. Research it for yourself. Find out the truth for yourself. Don't listen to talking heads. They all have a reason to sway you, which is to sell you sponsor merchandise. That isn't having your best interests at heart. Shares of the market at the top do not help you at the bottom. And the wealthy, they practice something called strategic dispersion. A nuke isn't going to get them all. A nuke dropped on New York is not going to kill even the whole government in New York, but it is going to kill all the innocents. It's going to kill all the children. It's going to kill the atoms that you don't care about. But those atoms care about themselves. I care about me. I care about me more than I care about you. And I feel, because of the tension that's rising, that you're not doing your job. And this isn't a Joe Biden, because our president changes every several years. It isn't even about Donald Trump. And let me tell you about Joe Biden and Donald Trump. I'm extraordinarily opposed to one of you. But in both cases, you were, when you were elected by process and validated, my president. And if you had said to me during that time, sorry, Bill, you're going to have to go to war, damned if I wouldn't have to put on a uniform and stagger off to war. But you, and I'm glad you didn't, but your job is to prevent war and to reduce the tension and stress on your polity. Now, I understand that none of you wealthy people are stressed right now. You're all making money hand over fist. This is your happy time. The misery of the poor is being increased, and you're profiting on it. I'd like to say something biblical about that, what that makes you, from my point of view. But I'm not gonna. I just want to talk about how a guy who doesn't even watch television is so strongly stressed by the current geopolitical situation, which you have failed to contain, absolutely failed to contain, is affecting me so strongly. And I'm more aware of stresses than most people. I'm a very aware person because I have ADD. It makes you aware of things. You're easily distracted because you notice everything. If you guys can make me feel that way, and I don't even watch television, I don't listen to the hype, and the hype is all about making you upset so that the sponsors can sell you products, because you make decisions badly when you're stressed, and that's what the news programming is literally there for. Not to inform you, not to make you erudite, not to give you a basis from which to live a better life. The news is merely there to upset you, because if they upset you, the sponsor of goods commercial comes on, and you're more likely to make a dumb decision, financially speaking, when you're stressed. True story. And so the news isn't important to me. I don't watch it. It is merely smoke and mirrors to try to get me to buy products I neither need or can afford. That's all the news does. But it does it by stressing you. And now people are carrying this additional enormous load of stress that they're ignoring because they don't know it's there. Like you don't know that poisoning is there until it hits you. Like you don't know a thrombus is there until it hits your heart and you stop. That you don't know that there's a clog in your artery that's about to strike you in the brain. Everything seems fine, but it's not. And that's exactly what's happening to our population. Those who aren't oversensitized like I am are being overstressed in a way that their subconscious has not been able to express to them adequately to get them to reduce that stress. It's going to build up to a point that they're not going to be able to stand. And we're going to see an increase in crime. We're going to see an increase in brutality. We're going to see an increase in government crackdowns. And we're going to see an increase of misery of the poor. And the whole stated point of a government is to reduce the misery of the poor. Get to work, you guys. We're going to need it. We're going to need somebody to talk us out of this craziness that's going on right now where another world leader is threatening nuclear retaliation. And it's all about shares of the market. That isn't a good enough reason to kill innocent people. And none of you rich people is innocent. You're all embracing the system because you're profiting off it. As I said, I don't want to use biblical language to tell you what that makes you. But, golly, if you had any intelligence at all rather than pure avarice as your driving force, you would know what that makes you. Wild Bill.